I don't want to be a property investor because of all those tenant issues. Welcome to Property Investing with Abby. Today I want to talk to you about tenants. One of the biggest things that puts people off becoming buy-to-let landlords and investing in property are these guys. And I want to talk to you about what type of issues you might get and how to deal with them. Now, anything in this world could go wrong. That's life. You are going to have tenant issues at some point. It's how you prepare and how you deal with them is the key. And a lot of the times where you see people have got a lot of tenant issues, there's different reasons behind the scenes that's causing it, because not every tenant's bad. I've been in charge of a letting agency for the last 4 years, and I can tell you it's only about 2% of the tenants we've had issues with. The rest are really good, pay their rent, look after the property, and that's the kind of thing you want. Now, so going into it, the first thing you need to know is there will be tenant issues. And if you don't want to accept any tenant issues, then you might need to think whether buy-to-let investing is for you. So how do you deal with it? So the first thing is with tenants, you can get arrears. Now, arrears is where they don't pay their rent on time. There's usually lots of different reasons for this. Sometimes they forget to transfer it and they've not set up a standing order. Sometimes they're getting paid late, so they pay you late, and it's how you deal with that. Sometimes you get a tenant that's lost his job that just can't pay and doesn't pay, or other times you get a tenant that's challenging and just won't pay, and then you've got to get them out of your property in the right way. You can suffer from damage. So I've had this happen to me where you have a tenant that damages the property, and again, it's how you need to deal with that. But damage can happen, and depending on the tenant, they can cause quite a bit of damage. The third biggest issue with tenants is probably voids. So you'll have void periods in between tenants. Now, depending on how you deal with that, you can minimise that very quickly because rental properties are in demand. We're not building enough new houses for people to go in, and our population's growing and we've not got enough accommodation. So rentals are in demand, so voids is definitely something that you can influence. You've got abandon, where tenants just up and just leave overnight. We've had a tenant that's done an overnight flit, but I'm quite happy with that. They go, I get my property back, and I can get new tenants in it. And then you've got misuse, so tenants that want to misuse your property, maybe use it for something that it's not intended for, sublet other rooms. So these are all the types of things you can get from tenants. Now, the first thing you need to realise is tenants are human. They're just like us. You know, they want somewhere nice to live, and 99% of tenants are very good tenants. But here's how you can protect yourself being a buy-to-let landlord. The first one is you either need a really, really good letting agent, and I talk about this on stage when I train all the time. So many people get into the trap of managing their own portfolio, and I don't agree with that. My personal point of view. I don't want to be managing my tenants. I don't want to be managing when their rent payments coming in, and for the percentage that a letting agent charges, I'd rather have a letting agent have them because my job should be to grow my business, not to work in it. But that'll be your decision what to do with your portfolio. My personal preference is to outsource it to a letting agent. Now, you need to make sure you get a very good letting agent. So when you approach letting agents, shop around, talk to a few, ask to speak to one of their current landlords, ask how much contact you have, and ask them what they do in these circumstances, what they do when a tenant gets into arrears, what they do when a tenant damages a property, etc., etc. And double check that you're happy with how they're going to look after your investment, your property, because that's a big thing. If you're not having a letting agent, if you're managing yourself, I'm going to talk you through what you can do. Now, the very, very, very first thing is most of these problems go away when you get good quality tenants and you reference them properly. And I've seen people cut corners or, let their house out to their friend's mate that they don't really know. Don't cut corners and do it properly. Get a full reference. Now, you want an income reference. You want a reference to know from a previous landlord. You want to check they've definitely still got a job. You want to check that they've got the right to rent in the UK. So get that done properly. And what I say is, if I'm doing it, I meet the tenant in person because we've had times where the reference has come back and it's looked absolutely perfect. It looks like they're the best person, but when you meet them, you feel something's off. So when the letting agent will do this, or you, when you're doing a viewing with a tenant, you're asking why they want the property, where they come from, how long they're going to stay. Just generally get to know them and do the full reference. Now, something will come up on the reference. I've seen some landlords that are so desperate to get people in that they'll accept someone that's got arrears, or that hasn't got a very good landlord, or hasn't got a permanent job. Just protect yourself, hold out, because there's more tenants than there are rental properties. You will get a tenant in your property, and it's better getting the best, good quality one than rushing and putting someone bad in. So that's the first thing. The second thing is get a really, really good inventory done of the property. This is a cost, but it protects you. So this will stop damage. And it will help you in a case of if at the end of the tenancy you're saying, well, this has been damaged, and they say, no, it isn't. So get a good inventory done. And I can't say that. The amount of times we've used the inventory, be able to reclaim the deposit for our landlord is huge. So either get the letting agent to do an inventory, or you do a really good inventory. Now, the third thing we do it in our letting agency, but also if I was personally putting tenants in, I would do this. On the day they move in, I don't just hand them the keys and let them to it. I go to the property with them. I set expectations about how I'd like the property looked after and what's expected. So number one, rent is expected on time. If they're late, I let them know about the fee we will be charging them for late payments. And it's not a massive fee, but it does put them off. And I get them to sign a standing order that I send to the bank that gets everything set up, or I get them on their phone to set up me as a payment and to make sure that's all set up on their online banking. Everybody has this nowadays. Very easy. I get them to do it. I then sit them down, welcome them to be a tenant, and just tell them what I expect. So how I expect the house to be looked after, wiping the windows inside is their job, looking after the property, letting me know if something goes wrong so it doesn't cause more damage, that I can fix it. And that I want, I'll be inspecting every 3 months, but, if things are going really well and everything looks good, I'll leave them to it, but what I expect from them. That's massive, and that really helps. I show them the boiler, I show them where the cook stop is, to stop any water leaks, and I take them around the property and make sure they fully understand before I hand them keys over, and the standing orders set up before I hand them keys over. And that, I think, has been really important because they've really understood what I want from the property as well, and our letting agency do that. So I think that's huge. A lot of times nowadays, like for my latest property that I went into rented with, I just went to the letting agent's office and just handed me the keys. Nothing was told me. I wasn't told anything. It was assumed I know. And now I've not rented. I own properties. This is the very first time I rent. So, someone should have sat down with me and said to me, this is what's expected. Don't assume. And what we do is in the estate agency we have a handout pack that we give to tenants. It just says what's expected. Simple things like putting the bin out for the bin men. So that's the 3 things. So first of all, reference your tenant, do a good inventory, and do expectation settings for what you want for your property. Now, let's go through these one by one. Arrears. When somebody goes into arrears, you need to know the day after, immediately, if that money's not in your bank. If it's not in your bank, you need to be phoning the tenant. Now, we do this as a letting agency. Day 1 of arrears is a huge day for us. We're on the phone with the tenant, we're texting them, we're trying to get hold of them. Because the longer you leave somebody in arrears, the harder it is for them to come out of it. So immediately you need to know, and you need to be on them like a rash. So either you or your letting agent. Day 2, we visit the property. So if we've not managed to get hold of them or not spoke to them or we're not satisfied, we tell them we're coming for an inspection and we visit the property day 2. We see them face to face. We make sure whatever's going on, we can talk to them. Now it's about being open, and it's about win-win, and everything I do in property is win-win. So I've had one of my tenants tell me before that they can't pay because they've just lost their job, or the company's gone into receivership and the company haven't paid salaries. I've worked with that tenant, so I've allowed them to have a month off, and we've done a payment plan. So not only can they start paying me rent, but they can start, topping up their rent for the month that they've missed. That's entirely up to you. I've had a tenant before tell me that, they can't afford it anymore. They've got to go live back with mum because of things that happened. I said, that's okay. I said, the tenancy can end tomorrow. We'll write off the rest of the tenancy term. No more rent's due. You're up to date, you just owe for the day or 2 you've missed, and then it's win-win, and you need to keep that to conversation. Challenges happen when you have landlords or letting agents not talking to the person. So the person feels scared or the person just wants to shut all their doors and hide. Remember, tenants are human. You need to talk to them and they'll talk to you and come up with a solution that's happy for both sides. But with arrears, the biggest tip I can give is be on it from day one. The minute they go into arrears, day one. We have a full, if you came into our letting agency, we'd show you our arrears plan. And it's a full, it goes from day one to day 30, and it's everything we do until we have to serve section notices. But we don't want to serve section notices because they're costly and timely for landlords. So we try and resolve it there and then, and we try and get a win-win situation there and then. Unfortunately, you can't always do that. We have had to take tenants to court, but it's painful and it's long and it's easier to try and sort stuff out or to get them out of the property sooner if they literally can't pay. Number 2, damage. Damage is a big thing for me, and it's respect of the property, and again, it's getting the right person going in. So we will do an inventory, we put the tenant in the property, then after 3 weeks, we're round there to inspect that property and check everything's in order, because within 3 weeks you get a pretty good idea whether they're going to look after that property or not. So we go around the property, we try and get a time when they're in, we don't do an inspection, we don't use our keys and just go in. We want them to be there because we want to check everything. Stuff like, are they opening windows for air circulation, because you've seen the amount of houses you go into where there's like black mould, which it's caused by bad air circulation. So we're looking at things like this. We're checking they're keeping the house nice, clean, tidy, the garden's kept tidy, and the rubbish and stuff. But inspections are important. And then after that, we do every 3 months, we do a full report so we can keep track of it, but you nip it in the bud in the beginning. When there has been damage, when we set expectations when a tenant goes into a property, we say to them, look, if you absolutely break anything, something happens, please tell us. We want to help. You will be liable to fix it and pay, but we want to help you. We don't want you bringing in your Uncle Bob who knows how to do something. We want you to have good contracts. We want to work with you, and that usually helps. When you have tenants that are just damaging the property, we're very, very hard with them, and we will find out the cost of the damage, we will find them, and it's a no tolerance for us. And if they leave the property on their checkout when we're there with them and we talk to them about the damage, we get the money from them there and then. We don't just wait for the deposit money to come back. We try and get it there and then and get it all sorted and boxed off. The other thing to do with damage is when a tenant's come in to check out, we go and visit them probably 6 weeks before they check out. We give them a list of everything they need to do to get that property back up to standard. And we tell them, you'll lose your deposit if you don't do X, Y, and Z. And giving them that list really helps them because they think, gosh, I don't want to lose all my, £900 deposit I've paid. Yeah, I'll totally do that. Or yeah, she's right, that's gone wrong. So we do that with them. Voids are an easy, simple thing for me. You shouldn't have voids. You should have literally a couple of days between tenants. And I'll tell you why voids occur. Because people are quite relaxed, aren't they, and laid back. And some letting agents are. Some letting agents will literally wait until the properties are not tenanted, go and have a look round it, then get the maintenance done, whatever needs doing, or the wear and tear, and then market the property. We don't. The minute we receive notice that a tenant's going, or we've served notice, that property's on the market that day. We're interviewing, we're getting phone calls from people wanting to rent, we're getting all their details, and immediately the day after someone's moved out, once we've checked, we aim for viewings, and then we aim to put someone in ASAP, so that our landlord doesn't miss out on loss of rent. And it's just about being on the ball with it, and you shouldn't really have that. If you're having voids for a long time, you need to ask yourself why. Because the properties that stay empty for a long time are either well overpriced with market value or such a poor condition and the landlord's not doing anything about it. And I've had conversations running a letting agency for the last 4 years with landlords. I am a landlord. The landlord's going, oh, but I really don't want to do that. I'm like, but people won't rent it and they're not going to get the money. You either need to make a decision where you take less rent because of the condition of the property, or you do the work and have more rent. It's entirely yours, but unfortunately you can't have it both ways. So that's voids. Tenants that abandon. I love tenants that abandon. Usually when tenants abandon, they're frightened, they've got to go somewhere. Maybe they're going back home, but usually they leave the property. A letting agent would then go check the property, put a notice of abandonment on, and then start to re-advertise the property. Once the notice is over, you can then re-tenant. But usually it's better in my case when tenants abandon than you have to get them out through court, because it takes months and months and months. So don't worry, it will happen. It's just how quickly you get another tenant in there, so it's less loss of income for you. Number 5, misuse. Usually this occurs again when the expectations have not been set by the tenant, because which tenants read tenancy agreements? Not many, I can tell you. So when we hear about something happening, we'll ring the tenant, we'll ask to go inspect within 24 hours, we'll go visit them, we'll go, look, you really can't do this, or look, this isn't the property for you. What we would do as well is go, look, this property doesn't allow pets, you've got a pet, you know, you need to do something about that. I can speak to your landlord, see if you pay extra rent, you're allowed a pet, but you're in violation. And we would serve them a notice, but again, it's talking to them and it's getting a win-win for you and a win-win for them. And most of this is built around relationships. Get the right people in, set the expectations, and you should hopefully put enough on there to try and protect you and your property. It is going to happen. You're going to have them tenants. We've all had them tenants, just absolute gits and smoke in the property, don't pay rent. But they're very few and far between. The problem with us is, as humans, we automatically think of the negative before good. I can tell you a million tenants that have been amazing, but when someone says tenants, I automatically think of that one that was a nightmare and that we had to take to court and it took months. But they're not all like that, I promise. And if this frightens you and you think, actually, this is going to put me off property investing, then you should really look at the rent to buy strategy, because that will take all of these away, all of these pain points away for you for rent to buy. So that's it. I hope you've enjoyed that and I hope that's been helpful. Like I say, either get a good letting agent and be confident that the letting agent's going to do everything, and you can ask to see their processes and procedures of a letting agent. What do you do when my tenant goes into arrears? What's your process? Vet them, or if you're doing it yourself, just make sure you're fully on the ball with tenants, because keeping on the ball and keeping the communication is the best way to go about it. So I hope you've enjoyed today's video. I have had an absolute blast over the last 10, 11 weeks filming buy-to-let property investing, and I hope it's given you an insight. If you want to know more, I train and educate at Touchstone's 6-figure summit events, and I'd love to talk to you then. Now, next week, we're going to start our brand new series, and we're going to be doing 12 weeks of rent to rent. So earning money from property you do not own. Is rent to rent legal? How do you do it and how do you make lots of money? And that's for next week. So like my video, comment below, and I'll see you next week.